The stadium lights burned like 1,000 miniature suns against the deep midnight sky, casting long shadows across the perfectly cut grass. 50,000 people held their breath as the clock crept toward the final seconds. A roar trembled through the air like distant thunder, building, waiting, ready to explode. Football had always been a game of moments, but 2025 would become the year of moments that felt almost unreal. Moments so dramatic, so unbelievable, that even lifelong fans would later wonder if they had truly happened or if they had simply been part of a dream. And it all began on a cold January night. The first moment arrived quietly, almost unnoticed. In a modest stadium tucked into the heart of Europe, two teams faced each other under swirling winter winds. One was a giant of the sport, a club that had dominated headlines for decades. The other was a small, underestimated side that most experts had already written off before kickoff. The commentators had spoken with certainty. This should be a comfortable win. But football has never cared about predictions. The game started as expected. The Giants controlled possession, their passes flowing smoothly, their attacks relentless. Wave after wave of pressure crashed against the smaller team's defense. 15 minutes in, the first goal came. A thunderous strike from outside the box slammed into the top corner. The crowd erupted. The favorites were ahead. By halftime, the score was 2-0. Fans leaned back comfortably in their seats. Some even began leaving early, convinced the result had already been written. But deep inside the away locker room, something different was happening. Their captain stood silently in the center of the room. Mud streaked his jersey. Sweat dripped from his chin. And then he spoke just 4 words. "We are not done." The second half began with a different energy. Suddenly, the underdogs were running faster, tackling harder, passing with fearless precision. In the 63rd minute, they pulled one back. A scrappy goal, messy, determined, the kind that comes from pure belief rather than brilliance. 2-1. The crowd shifted nervously. 10 minutes later, it happened again. A looping cross floated into the box. Their striker rose above defenders like gravity had briefly forgotten him. Header. Goal. 2-2. Now the stadium trembled with tension. The Giants pushed forward desperately, trying to reclaim control. But the momentum had already turned. Then, in the 89th minute, history unfolded. A counterattack exploded down the wing. 1 pass, 2 passes. The ball rolled to a young midfielder barely known outside his hometown. He hesitated for half a heartbeat. Then he struck. The ball screamed through the air and buried itself into the bottom corner. 3-2. The underdogs had done the impossible, and that was only the beginning of 2025. Weeks later, on the other side of the world, another unforgettable moment was brewing. This time, the stage was much larger. The stadium was full hours before kickoff. Flags waved like restless oceans. Chants rolled endlessly through the air. Two fierce rivals were meeting in a match that carried decades of history. These teams didn't just compete, they hated losing to each other. From the first whistle, the match was chaos. Sliding tackles, heated arguments, yellow cards flashing like warning signals. By the 30th minute, the score was already 2-1. By halftime, it was 3-3. Common extra time began. Players dragged exhausted legs across the pitch, running purely on adrenaline and pride. Then came the moment that would dominate football highlights for months. In the 118th minute, a striker received the ball near midfield. 3 defenders closed in. Most players would have passed. He didn't. He flicked the ball over the first defender, spun around the second, nutmegged the third. The crowd rose to its feet. Now only the goalkeeper remained. He chipped the ball gently, watching as it floated slowly, painfully slowly, toward the net. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Then the ball dropped under the crossbar. Goal! The stadium erupted into absolute chaos, a solo masterpiece, one of the greatest goals ever witnessed. Yet somehow, 2025 still had more surprises waiting. Summer arrived with blazing heat and packed stadiums across the world. International tournaments filled television screens everywhere, and that was when one of the most emotional moments in football history unfolded. A veteran goalkeeper nearing the end of his career stood between the posts. For nearly 20 years, he had defended his nation's colors, but he had never won a major trophy. This tournament was likely his final chance. The final match was brutal. Both teams fought with everything they had. The game ended 1-1. Penalty shootout, the cruelest test in football. The veteran goalkeeper closed his eyes briefly. Maybe he remembered the long road that had brought him here, the early morning trainings, the devastating losses, the critics who said his time had passed. Now everything came down to 5 penalties. The first 3 shots went in for both teams, 3-3. Then the 4th kicker stepped forward. He struck the ball low and hard, but the goalkeeper guessed correctly. He dove to his right, stretching every muscle, and pushed the ball away. The stadium erupted. Now his team had the advantage. Their 4th penalty went in, 4-3. Only 1 kick remained. If the opposing player scored, the shootout would continue. If he missed, history would be written. The striker approached slowly, placed the ball, stepped back. The whistle blew. He ran forward and blasted the ball toward the corner. The goalkeeper reacted instantly. One final dive, one final stretch. His fingertips touched the ball. Just enough. It deflected wide of the post. For a split second, silence hung over the stadium. Then came the explosion. Champions. The veteran goalkeeper collapsed onto the grass, overwhelmed with emotion as teammates rushed toward him. After 2 decades of waiting, his dream had finally arrived. By autumn, fans believed they had witnessed everything football could offer. But football always finds one last surprise. It happened during a league match that seemed completely ordinary. 2 mid-table teams, nothing major on the line. Yet sometimes the most ordinary matches produce the most extraordinary moments. With seconds left on the clock, the score stood at 2-2. The goalkeeper from one team launched the ball forward in desperation. It bounced once, twice, then landed near midfield. A midfielder attempted a hopeful volley toward the opponent's box, but he mishit the ball badly. Or so it seemed. Instead of flying forward, the ball spun backward toward his own goal. Everyone froze. The goalkeeper scrambled desperately, but the ball bounced awkwardly, looped high into the air, and dropped toward the net. For a moment, it looked like a disaster. Then something incredible happened. Just before crossing the goal line, the ball struck the crossbar, bounced nearly 30 feet into the air, and came crashing down outside the goal. The same midfielder sprinted after it, controlled the rebound, turned, and fired a perfect long-range shot into the opposite goal. 3-2. From near disaster to unbelievable victory. The stadium couldn't believe what it had just witnessed. Commentators screamed in disbelief. Fans replayed the moment on their phones over and over. Another impossible chapter in the story of 2025. And that was the beauty of football. It never followed a script. It never obeyed logic. It thrived on chaos, emotion, and moments of magic that could appear anywhere, anytime. From tiny stadiums to massive arenas, from unknown players to global superstars, the drama was always waiting. Because somewhere in the world, right now, a ball is rolling across the grass, a crowd is rising to its feet, a player is preparing for a moment that could change everything. And if 2025 taught us anything, it is this. Football is not just a sport. It is a story constantly being written in sweat, passion, heartbreak, and glory. A story where heroes emerge in seconds, where dreams collapse and rebuild within minutes, where the impossible becomes reality in the blink of an eye, and the next unforgettable moment may already be on its way.